I have roles in the UNISON Labour Link at branch level and, as she said, at Southwest Rep on the National Labour Link Committee. Labour Link does what it says on the can. It's the link between UNISON and the Labour Party, and its role is to lobby for UNISON policy within the party. So I'm very hopeful that this will include lobbying for electoral reform if we can win support for PR at next week's conference. So the key urgent task in UNISON is to get motion 102 on PR prioritised onto the order of business at the conference NDC next week. This is crucial. UNISON is in danger of getting left behind in the most important task ahead of us to win back democracy. So many unions already have woken up to the urgent need for change. Smaller unions like the TSSA and the Musicians Union, both affiliated to Labour, and PCS, NAPO and the Bakers Union, not affiliated, are already supporters of PR. In the last year, ASLEF passed policy supporting PR, and Unite and the CWU have both agreed positions opposing our current first past the post system. The tide is turning, and UNISON really needs to turn with it. If support for PR is passed next week, then Labour Link within UNISON will have a key role to play in pushing for action on electoral reform within the Labour Party, with that policy behind us, and pushing for a manifesto commitment for the next election that leaves no wriggle room. We need to be in a position to join Labour members in supporting PR at the Labour conference in September. But whatever the outcome next week, we also need to rally support for the proportional representation motion going to Labour Link Forum on 8th of July, which is not all of UNISON, but just the people paid up to the Labour Link political fund. That forum cannot seek to change UNISON policy. So unfortunately, the Labour Link motion that my branch and several other Southwest branches submitted was ruled out of order on those grounds. Lessons learned on wording motions in the future. But thanks to the Southeast region, PR motion did survive and will be discussed at the Labour Link Forum, whatever happens at the National Delegate Conference on the 8th of July. And that calls for debates at all levels of Labour Link inside UNISON on the implementation of alternative PR systems, calls for Labour MPs, councillors and other Labour representatives to give positive consideration to how PR could be implemented, and for the calls for the Labour Party to consult widely with members and associated bodies on PR voting system options at national and or local level, including a PR elected body to replace the current House of Lords. So that will give, even if we lose next week, that will give us lots of things that we can use to push within Labour Link. Professor Rob Ford is quoted as saying that the electoral geography is bad and getting worse for Labour. Sir John Curtis has said that for any given performance, the electoral system is inclined to reward Conservatives more richly than Labour. The Greens are woefully underrepresented in Parliament. There are so many tragedy constituencies where the progressive vote outweighs support for Tories, yet here we are, still under minority rule and suffering. The benefits of PR for trade unions and workers are clear. Shared values with PR supporters: democracy, solidarity, equality, justice. An end to the UK government's tug of war with workers and union rights. All EU countries with embedded trade union rights, high union density and collective bargaining coverage, all are democracies under PR. If we're serious about repealing the regressive trade union legislation for good and the restrictions on picketing and the right to protest, we need a different and more representative process for electing our parliament. There are known links between PR and lower inequality, known links to better environmental protections and action on climate change. Under a more representative government, we would have a chance to operate under a more progressive parliament who are more likely to respect workers' rights. Trade unions tend to have more influence under progressive systems. So trade unions have a vested interest in establishing a robust democracy where all voices are heard and all votes count.